There's nothing worse than a cold and drafty house on a freezing winter day. So today, I'm gonna show you 15 cheap and easy ways to fix air leaks and stop the cold from coming into your house and turn Netflix and freeze,
babe, turn the heat up,
back into Netflix and chill. Let's jump right in. I'm gonna start with, I think, the worst offender, and that is an exterior door. And that's because these doors get used all the time, and you probably haven't been checking the seals or the insulating materials to make sure that everything is okay. The first thing I like to do for an exterior door is just a simple push test to see how solid it is. So I've got it closed, and I do have the deadbolt locked, and I'm gonna just push on the door. You see that movement there? There's a ton of movement, which means it's not getting pressed against the insulating seals along the outside. Now, if I undo the deadbolt and do that, it's even worse. There are several ways we can adjust that, and the first one is free. Now, before I start making any changes, I want to show you how much air is actually coming through here. And I have a little thermal imaging camera, and this comes through right here on my cell phone. And so we can point it at the door and see exactly where the cold spots are. Let's take a look. All right, I'm gonna take some readings around the door and we'll kind of see what our baseline is here. So just looking around the door, you can see the dark spots are gonna be the coldest, and obviously the light or yellow spots are gonna be the warmest. So going up around the top of the door, it actually looks pretty decent. I don't see a lot of air leakage, but as we start moving down, oh, you can really see. So around the lock set there, and then down here at the bottom, our threshold absolutely needs some work. We're getting a lot of air leakage there, especially down there in the corners. It's a nice balmy 25 degrees outside, so I'm gonna try to make this quick. But if you open the door and look at the strike plate, you can see here that there is a little tab, and that is made to adjust against the latch. To adjust the door strike, I had to actually remove it, and then I could use some pliers to bend that little tab out, and basically that's what the door latch is gonna go against. And so the more you bend it out, the tighter it is gonna be against the door. So I reinstalled it, and let's see how much better it is. Still definitely some movement, but it is better. But when I latch the deadbolt, it's almost all gone. So that's definitely gonna be a better seal on the door already. And that one is free, but there are also some things that we can do to get a better seal. Let's do that next. Now, if that adjustment didn't work, the next thing we wanna check is the door seals. So I'm gonna open the door back up, and on the inside here, we have a seal, and this one is in really bad shape. Looking at the side of your door, you should have some type of seal right here on the inside of the door jamb, and that's what mates up with the door to help seal out the air. Now, this one is, first of all, I think it's just a really cheap one, and it is kind of disintegrated. You can see it's just got a little bit of foam here that's all peeling off, and it's just not very sturdy. So they make some that are way better, and hopefully we can just plug and play and put it right in. So this is a replacement door seal, and you can see it's got some foam in there, and it's got the little fins here that will fit into that kerf. And this only runs about $6.50 for a 81-inch section, which will basically run the top to bottom of your door seal. So we're gonna pull this out, and you can just see, just get a little comparison here of the two. You can see how thin that other one is, and this vinyl is nice and thick. So installation should be super easy. We just put that in the kerf here, and I'll start up at the top and just snap it in. And if it's a little too long, we can just cut it to size to make it fit. All right, we got the new seal in here. Let's see how it closes up. That thing is tight now. So part of the door seal is definitely a lot thicker. So it might be a little bit hard to close at the beginning, but just go ahead and just push it with all your might, and you can even deadbolt it, and that will let that seal kind of just compress a bit, and it'll be easier the more you do it, but that seal is gonna be way better now. All right, the next tip is to help solve the air gap at the bottom of your door, and we're gonna do that by using a door sweep or a door bottom. So we have these two different types here, and there is a traditional door sweep, and this will just screw onto the back of the door and literally just sweeps across the ground. Or you can have a whole door bottom, and this will actually attach to the bottom of the door, and it will provide the seal at the bottom there. It's going to depend upon the type of door you have and how much clearance you have underneath as to which one you want to use. Now, a door bottom is going to give you the best seal because it's going to actually go in and seal against the threshold underneath. So if you have space on the bottom of your door, I would definitely suggest using one of these. But for my door, as I started looking under there, it is right on top of my threshold. So I can't use this guy, but I would if I could. So instead, I'm going to be using a door sweep, which will go right on the bottom of the door, and it's going to help, and I'm going to try to figure out other options, but this will be better than nothing. Now, this door bottom is adjustable, so if I was going to install this, all I have to do is open it up, clamp it around your door, and slide it in place. Then you could just screw it down in there, and it would work. But like I said, that's not going to work with mine because it's going to have too much interference. So for the door sweep, what I can do is literally just set this down here on the ground and make sure that it's nice and snug there. And then I can screw into the bottom, and that's gonna help keep that air out. As I'm putting the sweep in there, I want to put the screws here right in the middle so that I'll have a little bit of adjustability if I need to go up or down a little bit. But that looks real good. Now, the door bottoms and door sweeps, there's lots of different varieties. They're gonna run you probably $10 to $16 depending upon which one you get. Still pretty inexpensive. Now, there's one more thing that we can do to seal up our exterior doors, and that is use some door corner seals. Now, I'm not so sure on these. These are pretty cheap. They're only like $4 for a pack of 2 or 4, depending upon what brand you get. But these are for the corners of the door where there's typically a larger gap, and we do have that gap here, so we're gonna put them in and see how well they work. All these are just a little wedge of foam gasket with a self-adhesive piece on the back, and we can just put that right into the bottom of the doorway, stick it in place, and then that will kind of help shore up any extra gaps that we have. So we got one right here. Let's get it installed. You can just clean off the area there, and then you want the thin side to be facing in towards the inswing, so when it closes, it'll seal nicely. Right here. I don't know if that's actually doing anything. My gap might be a little bit too big actually for this door seal. All right, now that we got all the door changes done, let's go back to the thermal camera and see if we can tell any difference. Okay, so just looking at the door, oh wow. The gap in between there is a lot less that dark color, and also the temperatures are way higher. I mean, that's mid-50s at the lowest. That's great. The door seal did a wonderful job. The floor sweep doesn't look like it did as great of a job, which I would expect, again, because I think a door bottom would do much better. But still, instead of the 40s, that is low 50s. That's great. So those are great tips to make your doors less drafty, but now let's go check out the second biggest offender, which is your windows. Now, depending upon the age and the integrity of your windows, they could be really great or really bad. Now, these are a little bit older double hung wooden windows, not vinyl windows. So vinyl windows, especially the cheaper ones, those can be pretty nasty too. But just like the door, the first tip I'm gonna give you is a free one. And especially if you are a new homeowner or even a renter, you definitely wanna look for this because you may not know that you have them or even that they exist. And that is storm windows. So we've got our regular window here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and open this guy up. And what you can see behind here is there is a screen. And so a lot of people just think that, oh, that's a screen and that's nice and I can have my windows open and no bugs will come in. But if it is a screen on the outside, you probably have storm windows, which means there is a glass panel up above. So if you don't know what storm windows are, they're basically attached to the outside of the window, and there is a fixed glass pane, just like in your regular window, and then there is a screen at the bottom. But the key is there is another sliding glass pane that can either be up or down, or there's little notches in here where you could have it just a little open or a little closed. So once temperatures start getting cold, you definitely want to go in here and get your moving glass panel and slide that guy all the way down. That's gonna be the best bang for your buck for the 3 seconds it took you to lower the window, because now you've got a whole nother insulator in that air gap in between the outside and your windows before the wind can even get through. So just like the door, let's take a look at the window and see where we're getting air leakage on this guy. All right, so looking at the window, oh my gosh, now that's a problem. Looks like I definitely need some insulation up here, up above the window, but that is not for this video. We're not doing any blown-in insulation. These are all easy fixes, but definitely an opportunity for me. Now the top pane looks like it is very cold, colder than the bottom pane, which is interesting. But actually all around the window looks pretty decent. I'm not getting any leakage around the trim, which is great, which means I have good seals there. But I get some here on the corners and then definitely down here at the bottom. When you're looking at the sill, that's where all that air is leaking through. You know, a little bit of it right above the window there. But all in all, these windows look pretty decent, but there's definitely some things we can do. For this window, I'm not going to need this, but the first thing you could do is caulk around the exterior of your window trim. If there are any gaps, if you feel or see any leaks that are happening, just get some good quality caulk and you can seal all around there. Basically, anywhere that you see a gap, you want to make sure that it is filled. So that is a quick and easy one, and pretty much any paintable caulk will do. This is one that I like, the Lexel, but there are a million of them out there that you can use. Maybe like 50. I don't know. You can definitely tell it is winter because it got dark really fast and it's like barely even 5 o'clock. So the next thing for this window though is that we're going to use some of this window sealant tape. Now this is just how this came because I bought it off Amazon, but there's different packaging and I have a little picture of some of it of what you can search for here, and we'll have links in the description to all these things we're using. But this roll was 10 bucks off of Amazon and they have this at the home centers too. And this is window sealing tape. And I can put this right on the bottom to seal up that gap where the air was coming in, and you can really seal around your entire windows wherever you had it, and this will help that air infiltration to stop the draft. So let's put this on and see how it works. You just want to clean off your windowsill, make sure there's no dust or anything to keep this from sticking, and I'm just going to close up this gap. And this is not going to be pretty, and obviously you won't be able to open your window, but it's winter and just close the blinds or whatever. It does get a little tricky for me because I got these little handles here. It actually rips. Now, one word of caution, anytime you're using tape, it can pull up the paint, and you can see it's already done it right here. I was kind of pulling it up to reposition it. So, you know, if you put this on, you'll probably have to repaint wherever you had the tape, as well as the next one I'm going to show you. And that was not a pretty paint job, but it's not about looks, it's about stopping the airflow. And I think this is going to do really well at doing that. And this next product one-ups the tape seal, and that's putting an entire seal around the window, and that is with a window insulation seal kit. And I used to use this stuff all the time when I was in Cincinnati, and I lived there. We had these old windows, and we would put these on every single winter because the windows were just so leaky. This comes in all different sizes, but this little 4-pack here cost me right around $4, so it's pretty cheap. So inside the box, you have this film, which is going to go around there, and it's actually heat responsive. So when you put the heat on it, it will taut everything up, tighten everything up, taut, I don't know. And then you get a roll of double stick tape. And so all we have to do is put the double stick tape around the windows and then put this loosely on there. And then we can tighten everything up with a hairdryer, which I'm just realizing I don't have here at this house. And the biggest downfall of this product is that if you have inside mount blinds, is that you need to set them wherever you want them for the entire winter, because once you put this up, you will not have access to that anymore. So that was always something we had to decide. We would kind of leave it halfway down and then open. One year we did try to get tricky and keep this little wand piece outside of it. That did not work very well. So you can either have control of your blinds or be cold and drafty. Life choices. So I'm gonna put these kind of halfway down and let a little bit of light through. And then I'm going to take this wand off because that will stick out and kind of mess with everything. You also have to get this out of the way. So definitely some trade-offs with this method, but it does work pretty well. Now, applying the double stick tape is pretty easy. What I like to do actually is put it on the outside of the trim, because that way it's easier to repaint, because this stuff definitely is going to take off the paint. But also it just gives it a nice clean taut look, because you're just one smooth piece when the installation is done. And again, make sure this is all wiped down. You don't have any dust that's going to keep it from sticking. For the windowsill, it does get a little tricky, but I just try to run it down, and I want to run it on the bottom as well, so that when that film is pulling, it will actually be pulling around a corner, which is going to make that tape hold up better. Because I have had times where I've been heating it up, getting it all taut, and all of a sudden one of the corners rips loose and I have to do the whole thing over again. So I have a little connector piece here, then I can run this under. So at this point, my microphone actually died and I didn't realize it. But basically all I'm doing here is putting up that shrink wrap film and just wrapping it over the edges and putting it on the double stick tape and making sure that it's nice and taut as much as I can get it. Now at the bottom, it is a little tricky, but just get it as good as you can, and then you can get out all these wrinkles with the heat. And like I mentioned, I don't have a hairdryer, so I actually use this old heater to put some heat on it, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna work, but actually it did. So if you're in a pinch, you can also use a heater to get this shrink wrap film nice and tight. And after running it over it for a little bit, you can see the results here. It is nice and taut on that right side where I used the heater. On the left side, it is still loose and flimsy. But now let's take a look at the results on the thermal imaging. Oh, that is good. So you see how everything is a lot darker? That means that we're not getting as much of that air leakage around the spots that we were before. So you see where the base, where the sill is? So the tape that we put on there, as well as the overall insulation, has really cut down on where that blue area is. Now over here on the left is the coolest part, which is really interesting. So maybe we should have taped all the way up the side as well. The next thing you want to do is look for other gaps and cracks on the interior of your house. And no video on stopping air leaks would be complete without talking about expanding foam. We have two different varieties of this, and this is great stuff, which works great. Good name there. But we have one that is gaps and cracks up to 1 inch. And this window and door one is a low expansion, so it won't bow out your window or door frames if you put it in between the frame and the wall. These guys are pretty inexpensive too. I think this one was like $4.50 and the window and door is a little bit more expensive at around $6. But I do have one more gap at the top of this window. I want to show you how it works. Then we'll use the other one in the fireplace. Now we are at the next day, so we got the light blowing out this window here, but you can see up here at the top, I have a little gap between the rail of the window, and I actually had just a little bit of paper towel trying to hold that in place. But I think the door and window foam is going to be a lot better seal. Now, I'm not going to do the whole film seal on this front window. It's just these gaps up here. And also in the summertime, we actually get some wasps through there. There's actually a dead one right here. Yeah. So we had a leftover buddy who came in through that hole. I was wondering where they're coming from, and I think that's where it is. So this is the perfect application for the lower expanding foam. I've already shaken this up, and I'm just going to screw this on here. Now, I don't love this stuff because it's kind of a mess, but it does work really well. And the reason I'm using this versus caulk is because it's going to expand back and just fill that cavity versus caulk. It would be much harder to do. Key here is to not overfill it also. Oh boy. All right, do as I say, not as I do. I just went to tweak just a little bit more in there and it all kind of spewed out. I am just going to try to clean this up a little bit because there was so much overspray. And if you don't want that yellow color, this stuff is paintable. So once it's dry, you can just paint it white and it will blend right in. At least that's what I tell myself. So we've got a wood burning fireplace, but over here on the left, there's actually a pass-through that goes to the outside. That is all blocked up, but the air is still getting in. So there's some big gaps there. All right, so I've got the thermal camera so you guys can see what's going on here, but look at how dark that is at the bottom. There are large gaps underneath this board here. And man, that is going down. Ooh, I saw 39.8. So obviously a ton of cold air is getting through here. Too big of a gap for caulk, so it's perfect for the expanding foam. It's probably going to be a bit hard to see here, but I'll do my best. It is kind of like a little dark cavern in here. That was not a pretty install, but I don't need it to be because I'll probably just put some insulation in there and then put a piece of plywood over it, do some more sealing and just board that whole thing up. But expanding foam is great when you have some voids and cavities that you really need to fill up quickly. All right, now a quick jump over to my home where we have a different fireplace. If you have a fireplace with a metal insert like we do here, then this next one is going to help you out. It's going to seal out all that cold air. Now I got the thermal imager again, and I'm just going to point this over here at the fireplace. That's funny. You can see my reflection, the heat reflection, but you can see down here at the bottom, there's cold air coming in and 63 degrees. Still, that is pretty cool. So kind of same thing there, around 63 degrees. And so definitely some cold, drafty air. When I put my hand up there, I can definitely feel the chilliness. Now, of course, if you do have a fireplace, you want to make sure that your flue vent is closed, and ours is closed. So that's helping keep a lot of that cold air out of there. But there is one way to go a little bit further. So this is a fireplace blanket insulator, and it has little magnets in it. So you can get these for different sizes. I think this one was about 36 bucks. And honestly, this is probably the one that I would do the absolute last out of all these tips because it's the most expensive, unless you have just a really drafty chimney or fireplace. But I'll show you how this works. It should just go right on there and it's gonna seal out all that cold air. So this guy has magnets embedded in it, and it'll stick right to the metal insert. All right, there we go. This is gonna seal it out. Now, this does not look good. You know, maybe we could print out a picture. Maybe I could have my editor just put a nice little fire in there. So yeah, this one is probably, again, only for those who have a really drafty fireplace, but I wanted to show it just because it seemed like an interesting product that I'd not seen before. Let's also check out what it does on the thermal. And as you can see here, that pretty much just makes that whole thing yellow, and then right around the edges, you're still getting a little bit of bleed, but for the most part, this thing is now just room temperature. So if you don't mind a big ugly black tarp over your fireplace, then this is a great option. We've taken care of our gaps and our cracks on the inside. Now let's go outside. And there's two things out here I want to show you. The first is the faucet. So one thing when you're getting into the winter, you want to make sure that you're unhooking your hoses. So we'll just take this guy off here. Now this one will help with the air sealing, but it's also going to help to protect your pipes, because depending on what type of faucet you have, the water might be all the way up to the seal where the handle is. And this is a hard faucet cover that's going to help insulate your faucet in case those freezing temperatures come in, and basically give you a little bit of protection from freezing temperatures so that it doesn't burst. Now you can install these really easily. You just grab the little loop here, put it over the handle. Then you can put that up against the wall and just pull it tight, and it will lock in place. So just like that, you've got a little bit extra protection from freezing here, and it's only $5, so I think it's worth it. Now another area you want to look for is your dryer vent. Now this dryer vent is old and nasty. It has seen better days for sure. It's got a little hole there, so you can get some drafts from outdoor air, and also more importantly, you're going to have critters jumping up in there trying to find warmth when it gets really cold outside. So instead of having one of these little 3-flap ones, which is kind of like the old school, you can get a dryer vent cover like this for about $16 that has a flap. It's actually a dual flap. So it's got the cover here, and then on the interior it has another flap. That's gonna help keep pests out and keep the drafts down. It's not necessarily insulated, it's not a great seal, but it does have two separate seals there. So that way we can make sure that nothing's getting inside there and getting in your vent pipes where, you know, it just cause a huge mess, and it could cause a fire if you get a little mouse nest in there and the hot air is building up. So I need to get some concrete anchors because they didn't even anchor this one in here, so I gotta go get some of those. But all I'm gonna basically do is take this one off and then screw this one in right on top of it, and that should solve it. And while we're here, you may have noticed this crawl space vent. So you wanna go ahead and close these during the winter. Now, mine is not closed, but that's because we have the entire crawl space encapsulated, and we have a dehumidifier in there. So there is actually hard insulation on the back, as well as some of that expanding foam around it. But a good thing to do is go check all your crawl space vents and close those up so you're not getting the cold air underneath your house. Then you can open those back up in the summer if you want to, if it's not encapsulated, to help that airflow so you don't build up humidity in the summer. This next tip I think is actually my favorite, and that's using these guys, electrical box gaskets. These guys are super cheap as well. You can pick up a pack of 50 for around $9. And basically these are gonna help seal up any of our exterior wall outlets and lights, because they actually can be leaking a lot of air. Let's go to the thermal cam and I'm gonna check these exterior walls and show you. And let's just see, I actually have a blank plate right here. This one's not too bad, but you can see there definitely is a little bit of cold air coming out of there. But on this outlet right here, check that out. And that is all the way down to 55. There is a lot of cold air coming out of that outlet, and we can solve that with the gasket. So it is universal, so you could punch it out for just a light switch, or for a regular outlet, or for a Decora outlet, and just get that rectangular shape here. So it will work with basically any electrical box. So I'm just gonna remove the cover plate here. Ooh, and I can feel the cold air coming out. Now I can just take my gasket, and I'm gonna punch out the pieces there for just the outlet. And now I can put this right on top. Let me punch this little hole out here as well for the screw. And this is gonna cover up most of that. We got a little gap over there. Now we can just put this right back on top. I'm gonna go ahead and just change this blank cover as well. This one should be really easy. Famous last words. Yeah, that doesn't quite fit those. So the holes didn't exactly match for the plates, so I just went ahead and poked them through kind of made my own. Now we can stick this back on here. All right, let's take another look with the thermal camera and see how we did. Ooh, starting over here, look at that. That sucker's warm now. Maybe that's just because I was handling it, but the cold air is definitely not coming through there at this point. That's pretty crazy. Now this guy, it's definitely still blue. Let's see the temperatures though. 58. So this is another one where it's still kind of cold where I did the work there, and the outlet is not insulated, it's just around the outlet that is insulated. So I would expect those faces to still be cold. But as far as on the sides, you know, does look like it has gone up a little bit. So it was down in the low 50s and now it's kind of in the mid 50s. So not a huge change in temperature, but if I put my hand over that, I don't feel that cold air coming through anymore. And that is a big thing, is just stopping drafts. So maybe that temperature might not go down quite as much, but if that airflow reduces, that's a really good thing. Another great way to stay warm is by building a fire pit. And I've got a video queued up for you right there to show you just how to do it. I'm Brad. Until next time, get out there and build something awesome.